Check this out. This is Tommy Shelby playing a coal merchant in his latest movie, Small Things Like These. And the costume design is absolutely spot on. What he's wearing is called a donkey jacket, which is a classic piece of British workwear that you have probably never heard of. But the jacket was actually iconic amongst coal miners, although it started out on a completely different trade. And even if you have never heard about the jacket, traces of its influence are still present today. But here's the twist, the modern day version of the donkey jacket has actually more in common with a floppy disk than with the original heavy duty jacket. So let's dive in the interesting history of the donkey jacket and how a practical utilitarian piece of garment evolved to become a symbol that got reinterpreted, rebranded, and in the end turned into something completely absurd. The whole story starts with a problem that the city of Manchester had. It's about 40 miles away from the sea. Before the 19th century, they used the network of rivers to ship goods in and out, but those older routes weren't just built for the freight ships of the industrial age. The solution? They wanted to build the Manchester Ship Canal, a massive engineering project that allowed big cargo ships to sail directly into the city. And a key part in making this enormous project happen was the workforce behind it, a group of incredibly tough and hard-working people known as the Navvies. By the way, the term navvy stems from the word navigator, which refers to the workers that built the canal navigations. And when railway constructions replaced canals as the dominant engineering projects, the term then also included the people building tunnels, railways, etc. And these guys were known for taking on the hardest, most physically demanding jobs around. And so in a small town along the canal, in Ruggeley, Staffordshire, a local tailor spotted an opportunity. He started designing jackets specifically for these workers. His goal was to create a work jacket that had reinforcements in the areas that were stressed the most. And since navvies were constantly carrying heavy loads on their backs and shoulders, he focused on reinforcing these spots. Because reinforcing the entire jacket would be way too expensive. And the result was a rugged wool jacket with reinforced patches of leather on the shoulders and the back, which was perfect to protect the wearer, but also the jacket from wear and dirt. And for the name, this is where things get fuzzy. Some say it came from the idea that navvies worked as hard as donkeys, so it's basically a jacket for donkeys. Others claim that it's because the navvies often worked alongside donkey engines, simple steam-powered machines used in heavy labor. Either way, the name stuck. And the jacket was a complete hit. Navvies loved it, not just because how tough the jacket was, but also because it allowed for freedom of movement, because the jacket was cut really wide and roomy. Naturally, other manual laborers saw the benefit too, and the jacket quickly spread into other trades. And that's how a simple, reinforced jacket became a symbol of the working class, which is exactly what workwear often becomes, a badge of labor, identity and resilience. That's symbol number one. Over time, the donkey jacket found a new stronghold. It became especially popular with miners in the UK. So when UK miners went on a strike in 1984, a strike that lasted a whole year, the donkey jacket wasn't just clothing anymore. It became kind of a uniform. You would see it everywhere, and especially on the picket lines, which are the gatherings outside a workplace where striking workers, union representatives or supporters protest. So the jacket was worn by miners, union leaders, but also anyone standing in solidarity. And in that context, it became closely associated with trade unions. That's symbol number two. So when we see Tommy Shelby in Small Things Like These playing a coal merchant in the 1990s, he's wearing a donkey jacket. Well, that choice is more than just period accurate. It's symbolic and intentional. Back during the strikes in the 80s, the jacket became more than just workwear. It stood for unity, solidarity and standing your ground. And I'm not gonna spoil the movie for you, just being said, the jacket perfectly fits the character of the coal merchant. But back to the history lesson. By the way, if you like those kinds of stories about fashion history and why things are the way they are, please subscribe. It helps out a lot, and especially for small YouTubers like myself, it has a massive impact. If not, that's fine. Let's get back to the story. The strike ended, but the jacket stayed and became over time more and more connected with leftist politics and the British Labour Party, which historically represented the working class. So the donkey jacket turned into a visual shorthand for working class pride, solidarity and resistance. So the jacket went from workwear to coal mining uniform to trade unionists and then to Labour Party symbolism. Does that already count as symbol number 3? Nevertheless, the donkey jacket became an iconic garment. But it doesn't stop there. In fact, it gets even more interesting. The jacket began showing up in unexpected places, especially in youth subcultures. Skinheads, mods, teddy boys and rockabillys, they all embraced the jackets, but in different ways. For skinheads, especially in the 60s and the 70s, the jacket was perfect for the rugged aesthetic. It spoke directly to their working class roots, but also their tough, no-nonsense look. Mods also picked up the jacket, not as the main style, but more of a part of their broader subcultural mix. I know sounds weird, the mods were usually more into expensive tailored suits, but the donkey jacket had something of a toned-down Crombie. I mean, makes sense, both jackets were made out of wool. And that's one thing that probably helped to fuel the cult status of this jacket amongst these groups. It wasn't something that you could just walk into a shop and buy. Back in the day, donkey jackets were usually issued by councils, utilities, or local authorities, and only to people doing manual labor. Sometimes they even had the name of the council or the company that issued the jacket printed across the back. It means you work a tough job, or you knew someone who did. And that exclusivity made the jacket cool in a very specific way. It wasn't only about fashion, it was about belonging. It showed affiliation, identity, and a connection to a certain lifestyle. And that makes it symbol number 4. So far we've seen how the symbolism of the jacket changed and how the different groups who wore it gave it new meaning. But what's just as interesting is that the jacket itself also changed. Originally, the donkey jacket was a wool coat with leather patches, functionally tough, designed for labor. But over time those leather patches started to get replaced by cheaper, less durable materials like PVC. And honestly, it makes sense. A PVC patch is still an additional layer of fabric that protects the wool and the wearer, though less than the original leather patch. But that's kind of the issue. The original purpose starts to fade. So if you do those patches out of PVC, why not do them out of a fluorescent color? The protection against wear part is already starting to diminish, so why not make it more visible? So we get those jackets that are more cheaply made, where the base is not 100% wool anymore, and the protective leather patch is replaced by high-vis PVC. Does it still serve the original purpose? Not really. But it's still utilitarian, but in a different way. And that shift continues. In fact, modern workwear jackets in the UK often look like this. And if you look closely, you will notice something strange. The shape, the cut, even the seams, they still follow the original donkey jacket pattern. The sewing pattern, basically the IKEA instruction on how to build the jacket, is still the same. The design is still the same, but the materials completely different. Now we're talking about Gore-Tex, ripstop nylon, engineered textiles, and materials that are great for durability and high visibility. But the old design, the old sewing pattern, it doesn't need to be there anymore. And that's exactly why I think that the modern version of the jacket has more in common with the floppy disk than with the original jacket. Yes, I know what you're thinking. It's a
skeuomorph.
Exactly. For the uninitiated, a skeuomorph is a design feature that mimics the form or the function of something that has become obsolete. It sticks around for visual familiarity, not for function. Like the floppy disk icon. We use it to save files. But most people under 20 have never seen a real floppy disk in their life. Or take jeans, the 5-pocket design and the rivets. Those were initially functional. The small pocket was made for the pocket watch and the rivets reinforced the pockets. But now, modern sewing techniques like the bar tack make the rivet completely obsolete and no one is using a pocket watch anymore. But we still keep those features, because they mean something. The look is symbolic to the thing itself. And that's exactly what happened with the donkey jacket. Probably even unconsciously. There's no reason to construct jackets the old way. There are easier and cheaper methods to construct the shoulder, but we keep the same cut, the same silhouette, because the history of the garment is baked into its design. So the next time you see someone wearing one of the modern versions of the jacket, just remember, the design was originally made to help Nevis build a canal that brought economic life to the greater region of Manchester. And the shape? That's history, stitched into a fabric that can still be seen today. If you're now inspired to get a donkey jacket for yourself, let's look at some options. Low-budget variations are usually not made from 100% wool and have PVC patches. If you want the look, you can go for something like this one by Nevis for around about $100. It has a wool polymix though and fake leather. With a higher budget you can also get one with real leather, like this one by Sons. On the high-end side of the spectrum there's this one by Drake's, which costs a laughable $1,350, which is actually such a joke for something that used to be a piece of affordable workwear for common people. I mean, this is not a working class price point. My personal recommendation though would probably be to go on Etsy and look for some dead stock donkey jackets, or hunt on eBay or Vinted for some original 100% wool donkey jackets. Yeah, I hope you liked today's video and had as much fun watching it as I had doing the research. And if you like those kind of stories about fashion history, here's another video for you to check out. Thanks for watching. Bye.